joints of thorax, whatever the joints are there in the thoracic cage. The thoracic cage, as you know, consists of a breastbone or sternum, 12 pair of ribs with their dorsal cartilages, and 12 thoracic vertebrae posteriorly. The sternum having 3 parts: the manubrium sterni, the body of sternum, and xiphoid process. Sternum articulates laterally with legs to the dorsal cartilages. Above it has a facet for articulation with clavicle that we discussed the sternoclavicular joint in upper limb. Today we are concerned with the thoracic cage. So there is a facet on either side of manubrium sterni for the first dorsal cartilage, through which it articulates with the first one. Then, at the junction of the manubrium sterni and the body of sternum, there is a facet for the second dorsal cartilage on either side, both sides. Then, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh dorsal cartilages. These facets are present on the sides of the body of sternum. So, sternum has 3 parts: the manubrium sterni, the body, and xiphoid process. The junction between the manubrium sterni and the body of sternum, there is a joint, the secondary cartilaginous joint, and this is the site of sternal angle of root. Then there is another joint present between the body of sternum and xiphoid process, xiphi-sternal joint. This again is secondary cartilaginous joint, but it undergoes synostosis. It fuses after 40 years of life. And on either side of the body of the sternum and manubrium sterni, there are facets for articulation with dorsal cartilages. So first to 7 dorsal cartilages articulate with the sides of sternum on either side. So these are all the joints which are present as far as the thoracic cage is concerned in relation to sternum. The 12 thoracic vertebrae, posteriorly located in the thoracic cage, form a segment of vertebral column which is located superiorly between the cervical vertebra and inferiorly between the lumbar vertebral segments. The vertebral column is one complete column with articulations in between the cervical and thoracic, between thoracic and lumbar, lumbar and sacral, and so on. The 12 thoracic vertebrae which are present in the thoracic cage are separated via the intervertebral disc, which is fibrocartilaginous. Along with the sternum, a single bone, 12 pair of ribs, and 12 thoracic vertebrae. They all together constitute the thoracic cage. This bony as well as the cartilaginous structure, cartilage part is contributed by the costal cartilages present at the anterior end of the ribs. This bony structure is responsible for protection of the very important internal viscera, including heart, lungs, esophagus, and other blood vessels present in the thoracic cage. If you look at the thoracic vertebra, it's different. We have already done the cervical vertebra. Its body is bigger as compared to thoracic vertebra, but definitely smaller as compared to the lumbar. As far as the shape of the body, there is a side view of a thoracic vertebra. Just a line diagram to show you its parts. As far as the shape of the vertebral body is concerned, this is heart shape. A cylindrical, definitely, there's a three-dimensional view. So there's the side view, you can appreciate the heart shape body, but of course in the superior view or inferior view, you can appreciate the heart-shaped body. The important feature or characteristic feature of the thoracic vertebra, which makes it different than the cervical or the lumbar vertebra, is the presence of costal facets. The costal facets are present on the sides of the body of the vertebra. These costal facets articulate with the heads of the ribs to form the costovertebral joints. Also, there are costal facets present on the transverse processes of first 10 ribs, which articulate with the tubercle of the rib. 11th and 12th ribs are floating ribs and they don't have any tubercles, so they don't articulate with the costal facets of the corresponding vertebra. That's why these costal facets are not present in case of 11th and 12th vertebra. But of course, these costal facets are present on the transverse processes of first to 10th vertebra. As far as the body is concerned, the body of the vertebra has costal facets for articulation with all the limbs, head of all the limbs. Of course, there are dummy facets in certain vertebral bodies and complete facets in certain vertebral bodies in which the ribs are articulating with the corresponding vertebra only, those atypical ribs. The spine. This is again the lateral view of the vertebra. The spine of the vertebra are long and slant inferiorly. This vertically slanting spinous process of the thoracic vertebra helps in protecting, increased protection to the spinal canal and thereby the spinal cord. Because underneath over here lies the spinal canal in which the spinal cord is located. So this long vertical spinous process protects it. This is the superior view of a thoracic vertebra in which you can appreciate the heart-shaped body of the vertebra, the two pedicels coming from posterior aspect of the body, is the neural arch. Then the superior and inferior articular processes which help in articulating with the next vertebra. Then you can appreciate the transverse processes, big transverse processes, in which the facets for the tubercle of the ribs, and posteriorly again the spinous process. As far as the cervical vertebra are concerned, the characteristic feature of the transverse process in them was foramen transversalium. So the foramen which was perforating this transverse process, and this was articulating through anterior and posterior roots with the neural arch. And over here, there are the two lamina located to join posteriorly to form the spinous process. What are the ligaments present in relation to the vertebra? This is the body of the vertebra. The cervical section through the thoracic vertebral region, this is showing with the body of the vertebra, and this is the spinous process. This is the region of the lamina of the vertebra. This is the sagittal section through the vertebral column. In this, you can appreciate certain ligaments. This is the region anterior to the body of the vertebra, the spread line. This is the anterior longitudinal ligament, which is running throughout the vertebral length so that these two vertebrae are joined. anterior to the bodies of the. Similarly, posterior to the bodies of the vertebra, this structure is the posterior longitudinal ligament, which is again running longitudinally throughout the vertebral column, so that the two vertebrae are attached via these ligaments. In between the vertebral bodies is the intervertebral disc. Then the lamina are connected with the next lamina through the ligamentum flavum. Ligamentum flavum is joining the lamina of adjacent vertebra. Then in between the spinous process of the vertebra is the interspinous ligament. And at the posterior end of the vertebral spine are presence of supraspinous ligaments. So all these ligaments basically help in supporting the vertebral column. Of course, the vertebrae are joined to each other by various joints, but definitely the ligaments are also a must to provide stability. As far as ribs and the thoracic fields are concerned, the 12 pair of thoracic ribs which articulate anteriorly with the sternum, with the exception be 11th and 12th ribs, which are vertebral ribs or the floating ribs only, because they don't come anteriorly and articulate with the sternum. Rest of the ribs indirectly through the costal cartilage is present at the anterior end, articulate with the sternum. There's a structure of a typical rib. There's a shaft or the body of the rib. This is the anterior end. At the anterior end of a typical rib is articulation with its corresponding costal cartilage. There's the shaft or the body of the rib, and this inferiorly is on the inner aspect is the costal groove present for the intercostal vein, artery, and nerve. This is the posterior end of the rib. In this, you can see that this is the head of the rib, this is the neck of the rib, and this is the tubercle of a typical rib, which is not there in 11th and 12th ribs. So, this the head of the rib has two articular facets. One facet, the lower facet, articulates with the numerically corresponding vertebra. Suppose this is the 5th rib, so this lower facet will articulate with the body of the 5th thoracic vertebra. And the upper facet will articulate, a smaller facet will articulate with the vertebra above. So, if this is the 5th rib, then this upper facet will be for the body of the 4th thoracic vertebra. Lower facet for the 5th thoracic vertebra. As far as this tubercle is concerned, the articular facet on the tubercle articulates with the costal facet on the transverse process of the thoracic vertebra, which is corresponding in number. If this is a 5th rib, so this will articulate with the transverse process of the 5th thoracic vertebra. So in this, we can see how the rib articulates anteriorly with the costal cartilage, posteriorly with the two vertebra, one corresponding, one above. Then tubercle also with the corresponding vertebra on the transverse process, the costal facet on the transverse process. So in this you can see articulations of a rib. This is the manubrium sterni. These are the costal cartilages. So in this you can see With the first rib articulating with the side of manubrium sterni to the costal cartilage. So in this you can notice that it's not a single joint, the double joint. One, the rib articulating with the costal cartilage, that means costochondral joint. Chondral is for cartilage. So first rib with the costal cartilage, which is hyaline cartilage, to costochondral joint, and second, the costal cartilage in turn articulates with the sternum. So this is sternochondral or sternocostal. So manubrium sterni with the first costal cartilage, the junction of the manubrium sterni with the body of sternum with the second costal cartilage. Similarly, rest of the body with third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Now, 11th and 12th are floating ribs. They don't reach ideally to the side of sternum. But what happened to 8th, 9th, 10th? These 8th, 9th, and 10th ribs, their costal cartilage is articulate with the next costal cartilage higher above. Like similar to this, 8th with the 7th costal cartilage, 9th with the 8th, and 10th with the 9th, and so on. They were forming this costal margin of the thoracic cage. Posteriorly, when we go, any particular rib, say we're using the term as fifth rib in the typical rib, goes posteriorly and articulates, its head articulates with the numerically corresponding vertebra and the body of the vertebra. That is fifth thoracic vertebra body, side on the costal facet and the vertebra. As far as the tubercle of the rib is concerned, that is going to articulate with the costal facet on the transverse process of the corresponding vertebra. This is how the costal facet is present on the transverse process. So this is fourth thoracic vertebra. So fifth rib is articulating with the fifth transverse process, body of the fifth thoracic vertebra, and partially at the inferior side, the body of the vertebra above. This articulation is, I thought we were the same, is very important. How a particular rib is articulating anteriorly with the sternum or posteriorly with the body and the transverse process of the vertebra. Based on this, let's see what are the joints we are going to study in the thoracic cage. There was manubriosternal joint between the manubrium sterni and the body of the sternum, which is secondary cartilaginous joint. Since it's a secondary cartilaginous joint, so slight movement is possible. Sternum joint between the xiphoid process and the body of sternum is also secondary cartilaginous, but by 40th year of life, it fuses and synostosis takes place, so no movement possible. As far as chondrosternal joints are concerned, the first costal cartilage, which articulates with the manubrium sterni, is a primary cartilaginous joint. First chondrosternal joint is a primary cartilaginous joint. Synchondrosis, there is no movement possible. This is the place where the thoracic inlet is there. Above this, there is clavicle also, with a common joint cavity between the sternoclavicular joint and superior aspect of the first costal cartilage. And this is synchondrosis. It's primary cartilaginous joint, no movement is possible. As far as second to to 7th costal cartilages are concerned, the 2nd to 7th chondrosternal joints are plain synovial joint. That means slight movement is possible. For all respiratory movements and all, expansion and relaxation, all those things, slight movement is possible because of this plain synovial joints present between 2nd to 7th costal cartilages with the body of the sternum. What about the costochondral joints? That is, between the anterior end of the ribs with their corresponding costal cartilages, they are fixed joints. They are primary cartilaginous joints. No movement is possible. No movement is possible in the joint between the rib and its costal cartilage. All these are primary cartilaginous joints because rib and costal cartilages don't move asynchronously. They move together only with movement of the thorax. As far as interchondral joints are concerned, between 7th to 9th costal cartilages, means they are also plain synovial joints. The thoracic cage, the 7th costal cartilage articulated with the junction, lower part of the body of the sternum with the referred to as junction, lowermost end, and 8th, 9th, 10th articulated with these. So these are also plain synovial joints. Let's see what are the various joints present over here. Manubrium sterni with the body of sternum, manubriosternal joint, which is a secondary cartilaginous joint. Body of sternum with the referred process, secondary cartilaginous joint, but by 40th year of life, fusion begins. So synostosis. First, costal cartilage with the sternum. That is, first chondrosternal joint is primary cartilaginous joint. No movement is possible over here. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh chondrosternal joints are plain synovial joints. That is, these costal cartilages with the sternum, movement is possible. Then the costochondral joints, that is, joints between the costal cartilages and the ribs. These are the costo is for rib, chondral is for cartilage. Are primary cartilaginous joint. Ribs as well as costal cartilages, they move together. It's basically these costal cartilages are anterior unossified ends of these ribs, which remain unossified. So these are hyaline cartilage structure only, and they are primary cartilaginous joint. No movement is possible. Then there are interchondral joints, that is synovial joints. Plain synovial joints are present between 7th and 8th costal cartilage, between 8th and 9th costal cartilage. What happened to the 10th? 10th is not a floating rib. 11th and 12th have floating ribs, and they at the anterior ends are costal cartilages present, but they don't reach the sternum. But 10th rib is articulating, forming this costal margin. So this is not a plain synovial joint, 10th with the 9th. It's a fibrous joint is attached via ligament. A ligament is present, it's a fibrous joint. So between 10th and the 9th costal cartilage, that is lowermost margin of the costal margin, there is no movement possible, it's fixed. So it's a fibrous joint. So in this, you can see what are going to be the articulation of a typical rib. Now you can understand. Anterior end of the rib articulates with its costal, continues with its costal cartilage at the costochondral joint, And this costal cartilage in turn articulates with the side of sternum. The posterior end of the rib articulates with the numerically corresponding vertebra on the side of the numerically corresponding vertebra on the upper demifacet, and its transverse process to the tubercle of the rib, facet present on the tubercle of the rib. The upper part of the head of the vertebra articulates with the side of the body of the vertebra above. So, let's see what are going to be these joints posteriorly and present in relation to the ribs. There is going to be costovertebral joint between the head of the rib and the two bodies of the vertebra. These are the plain synovial joints. The costo-transverse joint, that is between the transverse process and the tubercle of the rib, also is the plain synovial joint. So all these joints between the rib and the vertebra are plain synovial joints, so that slight gliding movement takes place with the movement of the thoracic cage. In this diagrammatic representation, you can see that the head of the typical rib articulates with the bodies of the adjacent vertebrae. As far as the first and 10th to 12th ribs are concerned, they articulate with a single vertebra, so there are no two demifacets present on them. The ligaments for these costovertebral joints are the fibrous capsules, which are plain synovial joints. The radiate ligaments comes from the head of the rib and it radiates to the vertebra above and the vertebra below. Then there are interarticular ligaments also. As far as the transverse processes are concerned, they articulate with the tubercle of the rib. So postural transverse joints are also plain synovial joint. And this articulation is absent in 11th and 12th ribs because there is no tubercle of 11th and 12th ribs present to articulate with the transverse process of 11th and 12th thoracic vertebra. What are going to be ligaments in case of postural transverse joints, which are the plain joints? There is going to be a fibrous capsule surrounding the joint. Then the three main ligaments: a superior costotransverse ligament, an inferior costotransverse ligament, and a lateral costotransverse ligament. Name itself suggests this is the ligament between the transverse process and the rib. So, superior costotransverse ligament, this arises from the upper border of the neck of the transverse process of the vertebra above. So, this goes from the crest of neck of the rib to the transverse process of vertebra above. Suppose this is the fifth rib and this is the fourth thoracic vertebra. So in that case, from the upper border of the neck of the rib, the ligament will go to the vertebra above, lower border of the transverse process of the vertebra above. This is superior costotransverse ligament. As far as the inferior costotransverse ligament is concerned, this attaches the posterior surface of the neck of the rib with the corresponding transverse process. And similarly, lateral costotransverse ligament attaches the non-articular part of the tubercle to the tip of the transverse process. So, three costotransverse ligaments you need to know in relation to the costotransverse joint. superior, inferior, lateral. Superior is a name in relation to the neck of the rib, superior border of the neck of the rib, superior to the lower border of the transverse processus vertebra above. Lateral non-articular part of the tubercle to the tip of transverse process. And inferior, you can say it's normal. Ideally, it should be posterior, but it's called inferior costotransverse ligament. This attaches the posterior surface of the neck of the rib with the anterior surface of the transverse process of the vertebra, corresponding vertebra. As far as the superior costotransverse joints are concerned, upper ribs undergo rotational movement at these joints. With the plain synovial joint, slight movement is possible, so they undergo rotational movements in the upper superior costotransverse joints. In the lower costotransverse joints, say 8, 9, 10 reps, these have slight gliding movements. Of course, they are also plain synovial joints. They are also plain synovial joints, but upper have rotational movements and lower have slight gliding movements. Obviously, because of the shape of this facet, which is curved in upper ribs and plain in lower ribs. So, the costovertebral joints in which head and the vertebral bodies, head of the rib and the sides of the vertebral bodies are plain synovial variety of joints. Costotransverse joints in which facet of the tubercle of the rib and with the transverse process. This is also plain synovial joint. What happens to the intervertebral joints? Intervertebral joints are between the bodies of the vertebra and the superior and the inferior articular facets of the vertebra. So, intervertebral joints between the bodies of the vertebra are joined via the intervertebral disc, which is fibrocartilaginous. So, these are secondary cartilaginous joints. As far as intra-articular joints are concerned, between the superior and the inferior articular processes of the vertebra, plain synovial joints. So, in between the bodies of the vertebra are the secondary cartilaginous joints, and between the articular processes are the plain synovial joints. This is the posterior view of the thoracic cage. So, in this you can see this section through the vertebra to show you the intervertebral disc. One vertebra is the lower. Vertebral bodies are lined by hyaline cartilage, and between them this intervertebral disc, which is fibrocartilaginous disc located between these. The two plates of hyaline cartilage, one above, one below, in between the fibrocartilaginous disc, they were forming the secondary cartilaginous joint. As far as the structure of this intervertebral disc is concerned, it consists of a central portion which we call the nucleus pulposus. Okay. On either side of this nuclear pulposus, all around circumferentially are located the circular fibers, and then there are some radial fibers also going towards the margin of this annulus fibrosus. Then anteriorly and posteriorly, these are supported by the anterior and the posterior longitudinal ligaments present in relation to the body of the vertebra. Anteriorly, this is the body of the vertebra, this is the intervertebral disc. So, anteriorly, on the anterior surface of the body of the vertebra are present anterior longitudinal ligament. Similarly, This joint is supported posteriorly by the posterior longitudinal ligament present on the posterior surface of the body of the vertebrae. The posterior surface of the body of the vertebra pedicels has been cut. It's just the line diagram. So posteriorly there is this posterior longitudinal ligament. As far as the superior and the inferior articular joints are concerned, that is between the superior articular facets and the inferior articular facets present in relation to the vertebral arch. These are also plain synovial joints and they permit some rotation of the vertebra on either side. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? So you can type. Okay, one student is asking what is the significance of the angle of drift. Angle of drift is where the thread is curving. The thoracic cage is not something vertical. It's a full curved structure. So it has to be a semicircular rib to make a full circle coming from both sides. Someone is asking